Writing music for a superhero movie is not an easy task. Of the many scores that have been written for countless films based on Marvel and DC comics, only a handful of musical themes have stuck in the public consciousness. John Williams' Superman theme. Hans Zimmer's music for the Joker in The Dark Knight. And Silvestri's Avengers theme are some examples of themes that have found a life beyond their respective films. But so much of the music for superhero movies is at best difficult to place, and at worst, forgettable. So how do you make a theme stick? Some would argue it's about repetition, that through repeated exposure we make unconscious links between the character or the feelings evoked by a film and the music. But I think it's more complex than that. And to find out why, we're going to look at a film that I believe has one of the best, if not the best, scores for any superhero movie. The music for Sam Raimi's 2002 Spider-Man, composed by Danny Elfman. Elfman has a long history of working in the comic book genre, from his groundbreaking, heavily chromatic and dark scores for Tim Burton's Batman films to his electronic-infused, rock and jazz-inspired music for the Men in Black series. Danny Elfman knows how to create character in music and how to write a recognisable theme. And there's one theme in Spider-Man that I think perfectly captures why this score works so well. But before we look at this, let's think about what themes he uses. Like with a lot of superhero films, the hero and villain both get their own music. For the Green Goblin, for example, inspiration for Elfman came from one of William Dafoe's iconic scenes.
I got his theme not from anything physical he was doing at all. I got his theme from a scene where William Dafoe is talking in the mirror to himself, and it's before he really knows he's the Goblin.
The music for the Goblin is chromatic and meandering, rising and falling in a creeping, twisted sequence of notes. Sometimes heard in full brass, but often played by thin, tremolo strings or pinched woodwind. Next, MJ and Peter got their own love theme, made up of a primary idea of just 3 notes. Usually played by solo flute or cor anglais, which is often followed by a weightless countermelody in strings. This 3-note idea stands in contrast with the multi-note, drawn-out music for the Goblin, but stands side by side with the main music for the film. The theme for our hero, the theme for Spider-Man, or I should say, the 2 themes, one for Spider-Man and one for Peter Parker.
First I wrote the Spider-Man theme. I thought that was very clear. That's Spider-Man, a hero, swinging through buildings and saving the girl, and something really brassy and heroic. Yet, this theme is working for Spider-Man, but it's not playing that heart of the character. And then I found a variation on part of Spider-Man's theme and spun that into a whole different theme, which became Peter Parker's theme.
Spider-Man's theme is introduced in the first tentative moments of the title sequence. Again, just 3 notes are used here, E, G, A. A minor third followed by a major second, which usually falls back down to the starting note. This is the core of Spider-Man's music and is used throughout the film by Elfman to represent our hero, heard in a short blast of 3 notes, or instead as an elongated progression for the more intense or prolonged sequences. As the main titles progress, we hear multiple variations of these notes, alongside mechanical strings, percussion and electronics. And the harmony underneath alternates between major and minor chords, never staying in one key center. About halfway through the main titles, Elfman introduces a second melodic idea, often called the web-slinging motif, heard when Spider-Man is in flight. This is usually made up of a rising minor or major triad, followed by the flattened sixth degree of the scale. But right at the end of the main titles, after 3 triumphant major chords, D-flat major, F major, and then B major, the music suddenly diminishes and the horn plays a new theme. It begins with 4 simple notes. An inverted minor triad that then falls down a half step. This is the beginning of Peter Parker's theme. The orchestra rises again, and Elfman gives us the second half of Peter's theme. A descending sequence of notes from a high A back down to an E. This is the most important music in the film, but how do we know? Well, straight after, Peter introduces us to his world, and his theme is heard again.
You sure you want to know? The story of my life is not for the faint of heart. If somebody said it was a happy little tale, if somebody told you I was just your average, ordinary guy not a care in the world, somebody lied.
The first associations we make between the music and the narrative in this film aren't anything to do with Spider-Man. They're to do with Peter, with his life and his story. And it's how this theme in particular is used and developed that makes the score so compelling for me. We won't hear this music for a while in the film, but when we do hear it next, it's very subtly introduced. After Peter's transformation into Spider-Man has begun, we hear a very quiet but melancholic version of his theme, just as he's about to leave the house and as he makes plans with Uncle Ben.
Cool, got it?
Sure thing, Uncle Ben. Don't start without me.
And don't start up with me.
This is such a crucial but understated moment. Elfman is reminding us here of Peter's words from the opening, about the sadness of this story, but he's now also associating this music with Peter's uncle. This theme is often called the responsibility theme because of the connection Elfman will make between this music and the moral at the heart of the film.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
But in this first act of the story, the theme is not about responsibility. It's about Peter, it's about his uncle and his family, but it's also foreshadowing what's about to come. After Peter dismisses his uncle, after he acts selfishly, we hear his theme for the 3rd time in the film. And this is the final time we will hear it, before Uncle Ben's death. As Peter holds his uncle, his father figure, we hear a profound rendition of the main Spider-Man theme. But as he dies, Peter's theme returns for the 4th time, marking the completion of its arc from the opening titles to this moment. There is no denying the link between this theme and responsibility. Peter failed to act with dignity, with honour, and his uncle died as a result. But now that we know where the music has come from, it's impossible to untie from the loss Peter has experienced, from his love for his family, but also from the conflict that is ripping him apart. Peter is stuck in between 2 worlds, where being a responsible friend and son might go against what it means to be a responsible hero, to be Spider-Man. Every time we then subsequently hear this music, we're reminded of this conflict, but we're also reminded of the reason why Peter chose the life of a hero. We hear it as May gives Peter the strength to become Spider-Man, to act upon Uncle Ben's words. It's used after he saves MJ for the first time. And it's heard just before Aunt May is attacked, and then again afterwards as she recovers in hospital. Peter thinks he is doing the right thing, but those around him are suffering, and so his music is becoming increasingly conflicted, pulled, as it is, in two directions. This is made literal at the climax of the film. After Osborn discovers Spider-Man's true identity, he gives him the ultimate choice: to choose to save the lives of innocent children, or instead, the woman he loves. And as he makes his decision, we hear the most aggressive version of Peter's theme, the responsibility theme. But who is his responsibility to? To his family, his friends, and his life? Or to the city, to the people, to humanity? Every action in our world has consequences, and I think the reason why this story, why this film feels so real and so truthful is because every action that Peter, that Spider-Man takes, affects the people around him. He chose to become Spider-Man, but alongside the good that has come as a result of this decision, this choice has also led to MJ and Aunt May suffering, and it eventually leads to the death of his friend's father. Just before Norman Osborn dies, and as Peter accepts the true responsibility of being Spider-Man,
I have a father.
we hear one of the last renditions of Peter's theme.
Godspeed, Spider-Man.
It is impossible to forget that this is a story full of sadness and pain. That at the centre of it all is a lost boy who happened to have great power thrust upon him. And the film, and in particular this profound theme, reminds us that this power has not just changed one life, but the lives of so many people in both good and bad ways. It reminds us that every decision we make, every time we take a step forward, we are never doing it alone. We are doing it together with the people we love. And this is the true burden of a hero. Thank you so much for watching. I really think this is a masterpiece of a score, and I hope you enjoyed this analysis. This video, like all my videos, wouldn't be possible without the support of my patrons. And if you want to help me make more of them, and if you'd also like to get early access to my videos, as well as behind the scenes content and scores, then take a look at my Patreon account, linked in the description. Any support you can offer would be amazing, and I'm so grateful to everyone who's already signed up. See you next time.